Conrad's talking about wanting to read Helen's book. Helen Keller, blind, deaf, and dumb, had written a book called Optimism. To me, this alone was miraculous. I found it on my mother's sewing table and concealed it under my pillow for private consumption. I believe I was just a little ashamed of this new desire to think. And I want to talk about that. That's idea one that I took from this passage. I wasn't sure what Father or the girls would make of it, his desire to think. After I had finished the slim volume, I knew I could talk it over with Mother. For the miracle of Helen Keller's optimism, although they were not members of the same church, had its roots in exactly the same soil as my mother's, faith. She wrote that, quote, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope, end quote. And summed up by stating that, quote, optimism is the harmony between man's spirit and the Spirit of God pronouncing his works good, end quote. That struck me, first of all, the thing about wanting to think. I think about that with regards to this.
Think about it.
What we do on this podcast all the time. And I think when we first met and had our first coffee, not that I consciously thought this, but when you have a conversation with someone that exchanges ideas, can go to profound places, deep thoughts, vulnerability, and not necessarily like gushing about your private life, but just sort of like I can just be truthful and open and honest. Those types of intellectual exchanges and challenging each other's thoughts, notions, ideas, opening up. Well, if you heard about this, or if you read this, or check this out, you might be interested in this. What you're talking about is actually this. Sorry, my buttons keep tapping on the table.
Yeah. I'm like banging the microphone.
Yeah. So when you meet someone, and my wife Erin is great for this, lots of great conversations, exchanging ideas. My mom is great with this. My sister Heather is great with this. There are a lot of people in my life where I can, just completely lose time in a deep, long conversation about ideas, and people that are open to new ideas and people that are giving new ideas. So for him at this age of, I think he's roughly 15, actually he might have been somewhere between 15 and 20. I can't remember exactly, but he is drawn to think beyond just what's immediately in front of him. Wake up, have breakfast, go to work. His dad owned a small sort of general store in San Antonio, New Mexico. They were frontier living and all that. And, sometimes you can just get caught up in just those things that are right there in front of you. And he starts having this desire to see things in a deeper way and new ideas. And Helen Keller was a big inspiration for him. So I just love that.
Yeah.
And I love when I can meet people where you feel the relationship go beyond the surface.
Yeah.
And they open up new doorways and pathways for you by introducing you to a show, a movie, a book, an idea, whatever. And oddly enough, as I was driving over, I was listening to the first Tears for Fears album called The Hurting. And the song that was playing when I turned off the truck was Ideas as Opiates. And I was just like,
this is...
And I knew I was going to bring this up. Then moving on to the optimism and faith thing. This is something that I've talked about with my wife a lot, because I am like that eternal optimist, the dreamer, the person that just always focused on hope and optimism, and the foundation of that being this unwavering faith I have in a non-religious way for me personally. Faith that I have that I'm going to figure this stuff out. Like and that doesn't mean like have a handle on it. It's all buttoned up and tied with a bow. There's always going to be challenges, obstacles, setbacks, frustrations, all that kind of stuff. But like, I'm going to dig out of this more every day and start to get a handle on things. And sometimes I might regress, but then move forward, all that stuff. And it's just unwavering. I've just never felt down about what am I doing big picture.
Yeah.
Small things, sure. Like why am I doing this? Or whatever. And, my wife, she listened to the podcast. Aaron, I'm not going to, talk too much about our differences, but she is very pragmatic, realistic, practical. And I think, at least my feeling is that there's much more pessimism present than optimism. And that doesn't mean that my wife isn't hopeful or excitable or, passionate about things. But there's just feels like there's just some general pessimism, and it causes us to have energistic clashes sometimes, where it's like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
And so the reason I was struck by that is I feel like sometimes when I'm full blown with my optimism and doing the things that I'm doing that maybe other people don't understand from the outside, and sometimes I don't even understand. For the most part in my life, I feel like I've been surrounded by people that don't share the kind of optimism and faith that I have. There's much more practical, realistic, kind of go the safe route, do the predictable thing, do the responsible thing, don't take big risks. Why are you doing all this stuff?
Yeah.
Just get a job, punch the clock, get a 401k, push your kids through college, and I can't do it. I can't do it. But to wrap up the point, I often wonder, what would this journey be like if I was around a bunch of optimists that had that type of optimism and faith, like a Conrad Hilton or a Helen Keller? What would that be like to have the majority of the people that are in close orbit to me be that way?
Just like, oh, let's try this. Yeah, let's do it this way.
Or just, to say, I believe in you.
Yeah.
I believe, I have faith in what you're doing.
Yeah.
I may not understand it. It may not make sense to me, but I'm optimistic and have faith that what you're doing is going to get you where you want to go.
I feel like that makes me think of this idea, like there really isn't, there isn't a future per se.
Mm-hmm.
Like we say like, I in the future this will happen, or I think that everything I'm doing is leading to this.
Yeah.
Or in the past this happened, so because of that the future is destined to look like X.
Right.
And we do that. We look at that as if that's the model. As if there's 3 zones that you can exist. Okay, you can look at the past. And that's going to inform the present, and then that's going to inform the future. When in reality, it's kind of just, there's thoughts. You have thoughts about what's coming, and you have thoughts about what's been, but the only thing that is actually real is where you are right now.
Yeah.
And whatever you think of at that moment is going to inform the next moment. And that's just, you're basically building a really long chain of moments, but there is no, like, it's going to be like this. And we can make projections, or, there's, it's probable that this is going to lead to this, but there's nothing guaranteed.
No. Yeah, for sure.
And so generally, I think it's probably the best course. Probably the best course of action is to approach it as if the future is going to work out. Whatever that next moment is going to work out in your favor. But then also, if you hit it and it doesn't, then okay, that is what it is, and you just, okay, well, the next one's gonna, and it's better to exist in a moment. If we are where we are right now, and I'm really optimistic or positive, that's a better state of existence than if I'm really pessimistic or negative.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.